Good everyone. I hope you're having an amazing day. So in my last episode, I talked about how to create a HTTP controller. So the main intention to create this controller was to split the HTTP layer separate to the other aspects of the code. So we're gonna do something similar today. So we're gonna write a JSON parser. So if you haven't watched my previous episode, you might be wondering what the heck I'm talking about, right? So what I'm doing at this point of time is to consume an external API and bring the data in using an API, right? So what we're going to do today, we're going to write a parser to how to parse the JSON, right? And then next time we're going to use that parse data to insert it. And then after that, we will talk about how to create a batch class to schedule it, right? Sounds simple. So that's pretty much what we're going to do as a part of the consuming API. So today it's all about parsing, right? So this is what I've done last time, yeah. And so I created a separate HTTP layer. So today we're gonna do a product controller. So what we're gonna do, so which get consumed by your batch class, right? So that's the main point of entry to this API, where it can call the external API and insert the data. So go to File and go to Apex class, and we can just write product controller. Yeah. So it's gonna take a while. Okay, that's great. Now you need to pay attention to what methods your class should contain, right? If you follow the solid principle, right, a class should do only what it's supposed to, right? For instance, the product controller should only be dealing with uh, anything to do with the product. So that's the reason why you should architect your code in such a way that it's easy to maintain. If you wanted to extend it, you can extend it without breaking the existing functionality, right? So product controller should only contain information about the product. Okay. So what it should contain. So we're gonna do public static var. So for now, just put the void here. Get product info from API. Yeah, just simple name. It makes sense, right? You're getting a product info from API. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna do the controller here, HTTP do, and HTTP controller. So response equals to HTTP controller dot. No, sorry, not this one. HTTP controller dot. So okay, get result. Okay, so now we have to worry about the endpoint. Yeah. So if you remember, let's go back to the come on. So we go to the name credentials, right? So what we're gonna do? So we will here. So this is the one which we have created last time, right? So we copy this, and so we're gonna do callouts. Yeah, and we're gonna do this, and the endpoint is the product, right? So this is great. Okay, so now let's save it. So okay, so now you have to test response.get status code if it's equals to 200, which just means successful. Yeah, then you can get the product body. That's the response body. So you can do so we can do response, yeah, response dot get body, right? So this is a body. So what I'm doing is that it's you need to check whether the status code is 200. You might get 400, or you might have access denied, right? So you might get different exception here. So you have to understand that, and you have to test the scenario, right? If the response.get status equals to this. Okay, now what we wanted to do, so let's go back to the Postman. Yeah. So we go to Postman, and it's gonna take us whenever it loads. Sometimes Ubuntu is a little bit slower. I like to code in Ubuntu. I'm not a big fan of Windows. Uh, because you can do a lot of stuff with Ubuntu, so you can code even the system level, like kernel code programming, if that's what something you're interested. You can do product. So this is the one, right? You get something like this, right? This is the data set. So obviously in the form of a JSON, right? It's not an XML. It's very obvious, right? So as you can see, it's a JSON here. So we need to write a JSON parser, right? So that's exactly what we're going to do today. So what we do, so we will create a parser class here, okay? Because I do not want anything to do with the parsing here, okay? Because product controller supposed to get an information, product information from API. That's all it should do, right? Simple, right? And so what we do, so we're gonna do an Apex class. We can say JSON product JSON parser. Mind you, we need to create a test class for all of it, right? So you can create a one single test class which cater for all the scenario. We will also look at how to create a test data factory so that you don't have to repeat the data creation every single time, right? That's a very bad practice, right? So I'm gonna create a code parser today, and then I will tell you a problem with the code, a bit of problem with the code, so that next time we can fine tune it and extend it a bit. So because it's important to understand that, uh, you may not be able to write a perfect code when you start typing for the first time, but always aim for writing a maintainable code, right? You don't have to write a super clean. It's good if you can, based, sometimes you have to balance the resource and the amount the client pays for it as well, right? Okay, so what we're gonna do, so we will do product, so public static void. For now, I'll keep the data type as void, right? Because when we work on the parsing logic, we can change the data type, right? So for now, we can say get parsed JSON result. Yeah. Okay. So now what we're going to pass, we will pass something called JSON parser. Yeah, and we're going to do parser. Yeah. Okay, so we'll just save it to see if we can save it. Okay, so that works fine. Okay, so what we're going to do, so we have to call this code. So this is a get body is important, right? So we need to do something like this. Get parser dot get parser, and okay, now we can do something like this. Okay, so if you do this, let's see what happens. Obviously, you get tempted to do this, something like this. But we got a problem here. So the problem is method does not exist, because we are expecting a type of JSON parser, but this is not a JSON parser. So how to do that? So it's pretty straightforward. So we typecast it. So we're going to do JSON dot create parser. Yeah. So this is the JSON string. So obviously the get body is a string. And so we're going to do this. Okay. So let's see what happens. Okay, so that's fine. So we don't have to worry about this part of the code for now, product controller, right? So we do not have to worry about it now. So our main intention is to worry about the response, so the JSON parser class. So this is where we spend most of our time today, right? So now before you write any kind of parser, right, you have to look at the data set, the way you're getting a data set. So let's go back to the Postman. Come on. So this, we are interested in what kind of data. So let me expand this a bit. Yeah. So we have a current page, which we are not interested. We have a data, which is the root node, And so we are interested in this data, right? So we're interested in product name, quantity, type, and ID. Pay special attention to ID because ID is unique, right? So if you look at the ID here, ID is unique. And so that's the reason why, if you remember in my previous episode, I created an ID as an external field, right? So we will use this ID to store in that external field in a custom object what we created, right? And this will help us to identify if the product already exists, right? Because what happens is that you pull a data every day for now, right? So normally, if you're dealing with an API conception, right? So most of the APIs will have filters where you can filter based on day, but this is just a demo API. So let's assume that it contains no such options to filter using a day, right? Or day or whatever, a month. So it fetch every single data every single time, right? Just for the sake of argument, let's say this is a very badly written API by a third party, right? Just assume for a second, but we don't have any other choice. We have to consume it, right? Because the third party said we won't be doing anything with this API. So you do take whatever we got, and we can't do much about it, right? So we got to work with what we have. So based on this assumption, right, we do not have any sort of filter condition on an API. So what we're going to do, so we use this ID as a key to identify if the product exists. If the product exists, we ignore it. Okay. Right. So what we have to do in this case, right? We need to have a data type here. Um, so let's let's figure out a bit of so what we do. So we got a JSON parser here. Okay. So the way it works, so we have a field, sorry, we have a method called next token, which actually loops through the record set and it gives you the value. Okay, so what we're going to do while, yeah, parser dot next token, yeah, not equals to null. And okay, so what we're going to do, system dot debug, because I don't know how the token values get returned, so I have to see what the system.debug returns. So based on that, I will figure out my data structure, right? How to parse it and whatnot, right? Okay, because you got to spend enough time to understand the data structure, and also that's the reason why I said to where I talked about a book, right? Different books you should read, and the data structure is one of the book because you have to write a code in such a way that it should not consume too much of computation time, right? Because I started as a C programmer, so you can imagine, right? In C, we if you are someone who try to work on embedded systems, you have to keep different things into consideration, right? So okay, so now what we're going to do, so we are actually looping through this data, yeah. So obviously parser.next token, parser.next token. So what we're going to do, so I just wanted to, there's something I'm going to do, system.debug. So we have parser is a parser, right? Parser. So parser dot, so we have get text. So we have parser dot get token. Sorry, parser dot next token. Yeah, so I need to find out the value of this one. Based on that, I will make a decision how to write a parser, right? So now how to do that, it's pretty straightforward. So what we're going to do is, so we use this product controller. So this is a way to test if your product controller works or not. So go to anonymous window, yeah. So we're going to do product controller dot, so get an API from the product. So obviously, so this is all I wanted to do. So let's see if it works. And it did something, yeah, which is a great sign. So we're gonna do debug. Okay, so we got all of this stuff here, yeah. Now, so as you can see that, so we are getting all the stuff here. That is the So we got product stout here, we got a stout 2. So we're getting, so what happens here? So pay attention here. So forget about this brackets here. So product name, right? So you got the product name first, and then the product value, then quantity value, type value. So what's happening here, if you look at the data set here, right? And then created at is, so we can use these values, product name, quantity, type as a key, right? Right, because these are the keys and these are the values. So if you try to understand the concept of a key value pair, like what we have something called maps, right? So we can do something maps here, right? So it's like key value pair, right? Product name, and so we can use map here. So that's the thing. Okay, now maps are great. So, but the thing is that single map won't work. So if I have map string of string, so you'll get product name and right? Then you have, so how do I know, right? So if I have a map, right? So let's say a map of string, which is a key, which is product name, and then value as, string for now, right? For the sake of argument, let's put it as a string. Now, how do I know that if it goes to this one, it will not override the first one? Obviously, in a map, you do map.put, and the key value, if the key is of the same name, it will override the previous value with the new one. So we obviously need to have a collection of map, right? So in that case, we need to have a list of map. That's sorted. And now, what will be the key? So if you remember, I talked about the key in form of an ID. So we have ID is a unique one here, right? So we can use ID as a key. So based on that, we do something similar. Okay. So what we can do, so we need a something here called, so we do here, so, let's say, so we're gonna do map, yeah, which is integer because ID is an integer, right? And then we're gonna do list, yeah. We're gonna do map of string, yeah. You can do what you're gonna do, product list, yeah, equals to new map integer list map string. You can do this one more. Let's see if it saves first. Yeah. So that's, parsing can get very complicated. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to choose a very simple. Okay, so we got a problem here. So let's see what is the problem here. Unexpected token map. Oh, sorry, we gotta do this one. Yeah, should work. Okay, so that's great. So now what we have, so we have everything great. Okay, so now we're gonna take this value off. So, okay, now keep it here for now. Right, so now we need a separate one. So we're gonna do map. So we need to create a separate map of this, yeah? So we're gonna do map of string, yeah? So we can, we can call it as individual value, yeah? Now we can do new map string, yeah, and so we can create a list, yeah, so we can do list of map, well, something like this, just can copy paste it here, so we can say individual list equals to new list. I mean, it's okay to use maps, right? But the thing is that you have to keep into consideration the heap errors. If you try to populate, millions of records, then the map will collapse, right? So in our case, we are not getting millions of records, right? So we might get, so let's say you're getting 1,000 record a day, so that's okay, right? And most of the APIs, right? So normally, if we're talking about a brewery, right? It's not that a brewery will have millions of different kinds of beers, right? A single brewery. They might have, say, 50 different kinds of beers, right, or 100 different kinds of beers, right? So at max, they can, even the worst in the max, right, the biggest brewery in the world, that's 1,000 kinds of beers, right? So 1,000 products, right? And product won't change, right? So if it's XYZ stout, it will remain XYZ stout unless they come up with the different flavors, right? It's a chocolatey stout or a milk stout or a velvety stout or, whatever kind of types, right? But we are dealing with a very simple kind of a type scenario, right? Or if you talk about lager, you have, then you have pilsners, then you have ale, then you have summer ale, then you have mild ale, Pacifica ale. I can go on for the beers because I'm a big fan of beer, so I can talk about beers. I brew my own beers, so so yeah. Okay, sorry, I digress. My apologies. All right, so like I said, we're dealing with a very small data set here, so this is okay to use this kind of data structure. Okay, so we got sorted for now. So we got product list, we got individual value, we got individual list, right? So product list will contain a list of entire data set, and with the integer that's ID, so ID1 will have a list of product, so a list of the data, so which contains the product name, quantity, type, right? So whatever we're getting here. Um, and so this will contain individual value, that's the product name and the name of the product, start or quantity, right? And the list will contain the list of this maps, right? Sounds good. Fantastic. Okay, so what we're gonna do, so we have to write a, this is parser can get funny at times. So what we're gonna do, so we're gonna do, so we just say, just gonna put the string here. Just gonna put string key. So we're gonna do key equals to parser dot get text. Yeah. All right. So now what happens is I just forgot to tell something. And let's see if it works. If it doesn't, then we'll fix it. So we got to change over return type since we're dealing with void. Okay. So we got to, all right. So we shouldn't be having 3 here. Yeah. Let's see if it works. Okay, so now we gotta change the return type from void to this one. Yeah. So come on. So we're gonna copy it and change it to this one. Okay. Now it will give an error because it says, "Oh, you've been specified a return type, obviously, right?" So what we're gonna do, just to shut this guy for now, just put return null. Yeah. I don't want any kind of noise since we are working, so that's great. Right now, as you know, like I'm a big fan of error handling, so we've done some kind of code, right? But there's no error handling, right? So that's a very bad practice, okay? So we can do something, yeah. So we can do try, yeah, and so just gonna do, yeah. It's gonna do catch and exception, ex, and it's gonna do system dot debug, and so we're gonna do ex.getMessage. Yeah. And you know what? We're just going to return this product list here. That's great. And in this case, if there's an exception, just return the product list. Yeah. Or you can return null. Yeah, whichever. But in this case, this will do the job. Okay. Now, so what we have done, so we are getting a value from the first get text will return something like this, right? This will return product name, quantity, type. So that's the first text, right? And so what we have to do, so we have to do something like if key. This is really not a great way, but we'll do for now. If key equals to let's say product name. Now product name. I tell you the problem with this code in general. So for now, let me finish this. See, my main aim is to make you guys a good developer, right? Not just a developer, because we are a lot of just developer on this planet. And I'm sorry to say, but over the course of time, when more things get automated, just developer will become obsolete. So if you want to be on that list, it's your choice. But it's always good to write a code which is easy to maintain. People will come to you and say, look, it doesn't matter. Yeah, for them it doesn't matter, but for a business it does matter, because you end up in costing a company a lot more in the future, because if it ends up in causing a lot of issues, right? So that's why not just write once, right? And then forget about it. And if you wanted to extend it, yeah, you can extend it, right? One of the principles associated with the solid principle is that class should not be used for modification, but it should be used for extension, right? If you wanted to extend it, you can extend it. Okay, so let me do this. Okay, so now we need two Boolean values. So we're gonna do Boolean. We're gonna do value add equals to false, and I need one more. Okay, so now just fine. So I'm just gonna do value add equals to false. Value add equals to true. Yeah. So what I'm doing here, so I'm checking if the key is product name, quantity name, type name. Then I'm just setting a flag to say, okay, sorry, this is not a value add. This doesn't make sense because this is not a value, so we add a key. So just say, so I'm just telling, okay, so this is a key which I want to add, right? Now where to add, I'll talk about it in a minute. Okay, so I don't need this one here, yeah. Okay, now the problem with the code, okay? I'll tell you what the problem with the code. First of all, you can see the magical string hanging around product name quantity, right? What if I wanted to use this somewhere else, right? So I have to type it, right? Let's say I want to use a product name in 4 places, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do product name, product name, product name, product name, 4 different classes, right? Now, say for the sake of argument, the product name got changed to, say, product NM, right? So now you got to end up in changing it 4 different places. Imagine how annoying that is, and you might even miss some class thinking, oh, okay, that's the only thing you need to change. You might miss for whatever reason. So it's always good to have this thing at one place, right? So that's one thing I'm going to do once I finish this code, to move all the magic string to a different class, a constant class where you have all the constant name. And that same goes for this controller, the get status code. 200, I don't want 200 sitting like that. It should say, like, what this 200 means, right? If someone looks at my code, they will say, what the heck 200 means, right? Your code should be like a story, right? If you can't write a code in the form of story, I would say please don't program, right? It's not fit for you. I have to be blunt about it, right? That's one of the things my mentors, the first time when I started my programming journey, a good programming journey in Israel, right? Tel Aviv. So not exactly Tel Aviv, it's a company in Renana, right? So I used to have a mentor there. So he used to tell me, right? I was pretty young back in the days. Well, I'm still young, but so he used to tell me, your code is shit. Sorry for bad language, but he said, if you keep on writing this, you will be obsolete in no time. This is not how you write a code, right? I've been so fortunate to have a mentor like him, because he guided me how to write, not a shitty code. Then I went, then in Auckland, I had a great boss. He told me how to, use proper design patterns, right? Because he used to hate any kind of magical strings, kind of coupled code. It's just a bad thing, right? So just because you're in Apex doesn't give you flexibility to write a bad code. That's what I'm saying. If it doesn't matter, you're an Apex developer or a C# developer or a small talk developer, right? Or even if you are not a developer who wants to become a developer. So okay, sorry, I digress, but I just wanted to put that point across. Okay, so the key add equals to true. That's fantastic. Now, what we're going to do, so So now we have to do else, yeah, if key equals to. Now we need to worry about this boy, which is going to be key ID. Yeah, ID. So what we're going to do, so we will name it as Boolean root key. Yeah, add equals to false because it's a root key, right? And we're just going to do equals to false. Yeah, amazing, right? So we will do root key equals to true. Okay, so that's done. So what we've done, so we have, oh, great. Let's save. It's gonna, we got an error. Yeah. Okay, so that's great. So now we have settled the matter with the key and the key root, right? So we don't have to worry about it. So we are getting a key and key type. So what we're gonna do, so we still hold the value of the key here, right? So that's why I put it into separate variable. So the key value. So now we come here to line number 27. We're saying, okay, give me the next token. Okay. So the next token will be the value of it. Okay. So if it is a key, right? If it's a product name, right? Let's say the code comes here, 14, 15, 16, whatever, right? And you got the get text. And if it's the get text is a product name, so obviously it's a key add equals to true, right? And then it's the next token. Next token will be its values. Okay. So what we're going to do, so we will say if, yeah, key add equals to true. So we're just going to say key add. Yeah. And we're going to say, so now we have to use this boy here, individual value, dot put and key, and what's this called? Parser dot get text. Okay, I'll explain to you in a minute what I'm doing. Right. Okay. You remember I talked about these two things, like individual value, which actually will be a key value, right? Key will be product name and value will be string, which is the start or whatever. And then the quantity, key will be quantity, and then the value will be 150, right? And key will be the type and whatever, right? And then the individual list is the collection of this map, right? So let's say in your list you have, so let's say I've got a map, right, with value product name and uh, the value, whatever value, right? And I got that map. Now I'm going to put that map into the individual list. Okay, so that's exactly what I've done here. Yeah, sounds simple, right? Okay, so this will take care of your key part, right? So this will absolutely take care of this two part, right? This code will take care of it. But this is actually not enough, right? Because we haven't taking care of the root key, right? Because right now we have created the values, right? So ID, let's say ID equals to 6. So I've so far I've taken care of all the values. So if you look at the Postman, right? So let's go to the Postman. So what we have done right now, so we have taken care of these three values, right? So but we haven't taken care of ID. So we got this value, but belongs to which ID, right? We haven't figured that out yet. We haven't done any code change to to tell to compiler, right? Okay, so these three values belong to this ID, right? So we haven't done anything so far. So we have created a list of this, right? This one is a map. So this one is the map one, is the map two, is the map three. So all this map one, map two, map three goes into a single list, right? So that's exactly what's happening here, right? This is a map one. Then when the code comes down, it will add again. So it will create a map two. and the code comes again, it creates a map tree. So everything goes into a single list, right? Okay, now, so now if your code is key add, yeah. So what we're gonna do? So now, sorry, not the key add. Now your code is now we are dealing with the root add. So let's say your code is running, so it hits this part 23. That means now we are talking about the root. Okay, so now we're gonna do so we're gonna do prod list. Okay, dot. So this is we're gonna deal with the big boss now. So we're gonna do parser, and remember, now we're not dealing with the text here. We're gonna deal integer value, and so we're gonna add the list. I'll explain to you in a minute if it's confusing. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, now we have this individual list. So now we're gonna do, so we have to take this, copy this. Okay. And we just boy this, just don't want this one, yeah. Okay, I'll explain to you in a second what I'm doing if it's confusing, right? So what I've done, right? So I hope that you guys understood what I've done till here, right? Where I explained that we're creating map 1, map 2, map 3, right? That's great. So now, remember that if you look at let me go back to the Postman. So if you look at the Postman, right? So this is this is one data set, right? Where this is a root key, right? And these are the values. So that's exactly what I did here. So I've added, this is a root key, this is a main collection, right? So which contains ID and the list of the map as a value. Okay, so now we got an ID here, which is the get value, which is 6, right? In this case, yeah. Okay, so the get parser will return this, yeah, an individual list, which is this one. So which we built it here, yeah. So we have added one value to collection and the list. Okay. Now we are clearing this one, right? Because so that I can reuse that. I can reuse the map because I don't want the old values to be populated for the next value, right? So that's exactly what I'm doing it. I cleared my map, I cleared my list. The list is empty for the next refill, right? For the new ID, right? So that's exactly what I've done. So, and as you can see, we have completed our parser. Isn't it exciting, right? Sounds simple. Okay, now we take this value here, yeah, and we change it here, and just gonna do a return. How cool is that? Okay, now you must be thinking, okay, all right, so else, okay, else return null. Yeah, because if the ID is not 200, it has to. So that's all we need to do. Okay, so let's run this boy. Okay, and see what happens. Okay. Well, something would have. You see, we got a collection with ID 1 and type here. So this is exactly what we wanted. So what I'm going to do in the next episode, which I will do tomorrow, right? My apologies that I couldn't do earlier because I had a lot of stuff going on this week. So a bit busy with other stuff. So my apologies for that. So I'll do this insert operation tomorrow so that we can wrap it up, sooner. I don't want it to drag it for a month or 2 months. I just wanted to, finish this. Then we're going to talk about integration design patterns, which is very important. You're right. If you're dealing with integration, different kind of patterns, integration patterns, right? You might have heard about it, but so we're gonna talk a little bit, to at an architecture level as well, yeah. Because I believe that if you're a developer, if you can architect stuff, you don't really need a title to be called as an architect, right? A developer can be an architect if he or she or they understand, right? How to fit in different components together, when to use what, right? But yeah, we'll have fun. So this is exactly what I've done, right? So as you can see, pretty simple code, right? Now, so next time we're gonna take this because it's not really a very clean code, I would say, because a lot of things floating around, right? So yeah, so this is one way you can write a parser. If you have a lot of nested JSON, then you have to figure out a way to write it, because I just create a very simple parser based on my requirement, right? Complex parser will need some time, and you need to have a bit understanding of the data structure works. And remember that you have to keep into consideration big O notation, right? You should not write a parser logic in such a way it consumes too much of time, right? You have to keep that into consideration. Okay, right. So yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration. I try to. My main aim is to make, like I said, right, to give to the world whatever I learn, because I tell you that there's no more joy in this world than giving someone, right, and empowering someone, right. That's the best joy, I would say, in this world, right, to help someone, you know, to gain extra knowledge, you know, it's, that's pretty good. That's exactly what I believe, to share the stuff I've learned with the rest of the world, right? I'm not a kind of person who wanted to keep everything to myself. There's no point, right? What's the point of having knowledge if you don't want to pass on to other people, right? The knowledge should be shared, right? So that we can have a better ecosystem, right? The reason why, we have a lot of bad developers, I'm sorry, I have to use the word because I have worked with many, and I've been one of them too, right? I've been a very, very bad developer when I started out. I would call myself, if you would have met me 12 years ago, I would have called myself as a shitty developer, right? But I've learned over the course of time, right? And I've been fortunate to have great mentors, right, who have actually taught me how to write a better piece of code, right? So that's exactly what I'm trying to do, so that I can, bring up the next generation, with new things, and give them a foundation, right? So yeah, so enough of rants. So that being said, I hope you have a great Saturday. Take care. Adios.